to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Hope everybody's staying safe out there. Going to try to have another video up for you guys later today. But in this video, I'm going to do a video that I've seen a lot of football YouTubers do on YouTube and kind of talk about the top 5 players, in my opinion, on the New York Giants who need to break out or exceed expectations in order for the New York Giants to at least compete to make the playoffs this year. Now, of course, it's all dependent on what your expectations are, but if you go by the experts, the people on ESPN, the people on CBS Sports, most people have the New York Giants finishing 3rd or 4th in the division and near the bottom of the league. Most power rankings that I've seen, the Giants are in, 26 to 30 range. Outside of Nate Burleson, not many of the experts have picked the New York Giants to make the playoffs or even really compete to make the playoffs this year. And obviously, as New York Giants fans, that's kind of the way we like it. You go back to 2012 when we won our last Super Bowl. Going into the year, we heard about the dream team with the Eagles. Not many people were picking the New York Giants to make the playoffs, but there are definitely a lot of things that need to go in the Giants' favor for the Giants to even, in my opinion, to at least be able to compete to make the playoffs this year. And in this video, I'm going to go over the 5 players that need to break out in order for the Giants to have a better season than a lot of people are anticipating. Now, I could have went with a number of guys, and I'll go over some of the guys that didn't quite crack the list that I definitely thought of. Jabril Peppers. Jabril Peppers has to have a fantastic year, and he's a guy that could definitely break out this year for the Giants. I think he fits the system very well. Darius Slayton is another guy who I think is imperative, who didn't quite crack my top 5, but he's really our only guy on the outside that's a big-time threat in the passing game for an offense that is going to rely heavily on the vertical attack. So those are just 2 guys, and there was a number of other guys I could have mentioned. You look at this defense, there's a lot of talented yet unproven prospects on the defensive side of the football. I could have went with any one of them, really. But I picked the 2 or 3 most important guys on the defensive side and the 2 or 3 most important guys on the offensive side of the football that I think need to really do a lot better. Not even do a lot better, but do better than what most people think they will do this season. And I guess 5 guys that I think could do better than most people think this season. So let's jump right into it. The first guy, of course, we're going to talk about is none other than Daniel Jones. And he is by far the most important piece to this New York Giants football team this year if we are going to exceed expectations. Now, I think most people probably expect Daniel Jones to improve year 1 to year 2. But in my opinion, for the New York Giants to make the playoffs this year, Daniel Jones will have to have a monumental leap, similar to that of a Jared Goff in his second year or, a number of other players, Carson Wentz being another. Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate year 2. Carson Wentz was not as good as Daniel Jones in his rookie season, and he really took off in his sophomore year. That is something that will need to happen for Daniel Jones this year if the Giants are going to win 9 or 10 games. Now, I'm not saying he's got to play at an MVP level, but he's definitely got to be, in my opinion, one of the top 10, 11, 12 quarterbacks in the league. And obviously that starts with the fumbling woes and the turnovers and things of that nature and his transition into a new offense. As I talked about yesterday, I think Daniel Jones fits this offense very nicely. You go back, you look at last year, his on-target percentage on deep balls was the best in the league. So you would think, he does have pretty good accuracy on deep throws. You would think that would translate well into the Jason Garrett offense. Of course, he's going to be dependent on a lot of other factors, that being guys like Saquon Barkley and, of course, the offensive line. And all 5 of those guys will be imperative in the growth of Daniel Jones this year. But if the Giants are going to get to the promised land, and this year I think the promised land is a playoff berth or at least competing for the playoffs up until the last week or 2 of the season, Daniel Jones will have to play a lot better than maybe some of the experts think he will in his second season. And I think he's capable of doing it. But like I said, there's a lot of other factors. And one of the biggest factors is the offensive line, and specifically Nate Solder. Now, I could have said Andrew Thomas. I could have said Will Hernandez. Kevin Zeitler, to me, is a given. I think Kevin Zeitler will at least be an average to slightly above average guard at a bare minimum. Hernandez definitely needs to improve, and I definitely could have said him on this list as well. Thomas is kind of an unknown, being that he's a rookie, but I think most Giant fans are pretty confident that he'll at least play average tackle play this year. But a guy in the New York Giants offensive line that needs to really improve off of last year's results is Nate Solder, and if he doesn't, I don't really see the New York Giants competing this year. Now, I expect Nate Solder to be on the right side, and of course, Nate Solder could be replaced, but if he's replaced by the 3rd or 4th week, well, the Giants are probably already in trouble. So that is why Solder really needs to improve. Last year, he surrendered 57 quarterback pressures. It was the most in the NFL at the tackle position, I believe by 7. He was far and away the worst in that department, and that cannot happen this year with the second-year quarterback Daniel Jones and an improved running game. Of course, the New York Giants brought in Mark Colombo, who's known to be one of the better offensive line coaches in the league. Of course, he had a lot of talent with the Dallas Cowboys, but it's not like Nate Solder hasn't had results in the past. Was known as a very good left tackle with the New England Patriots, played fairly well his second half of his first year with the Giants, and then last year he completely fell off. Obviously, we all know the issues he had with his child and everything else, and hopefully he gets back to where he needs to be. If Solder could play average, I'm not even asking him to be a superior tackle. If he could be an average right tackle for the New York Giants, it would go a long way for this football team this year, and I think he may be the most important player on this defense that a lot of people aren't talking about. Could be the X factor for this offense. The next guy we're going to talk about is a guy that I have high hopes for this year, and a lot of Giants fans, I think, have fallen off the wagon. And I don't blame them. Last year, we all had high hopes for Lorenzo Carter, and he definitely did not meet the expectations, at least in the sack department. He graded out at about 70 or 71 on PFF due to his coverage ability. And I think he's going to be a player, like I've said in countless videos, that will be moved around for the New York Giants. I think they'll use him in coverage. I think they'll use him to rush the passer, so on and so forth. But I think he is one of the most important pieces on this defense due to his athletic ability, his upside, and his versatility. Not to mention the New York Giants really don't have a great athletic middle linebacker, and I expect them to use Lorenzo Carter, at least in some aspect, in that role. I think they'll move him around, like I said, but I think he'll be used in coverage more than maybe some people may think. But he will absolutely need to get pressure on the quarterback as well. He will have to have a strong year. Now, I'm not going to put stats on it. I'm not going to say he needs 8, 9, 10 sacks, but he's got to be a force. He's got to be an impact for this defense this year, and he needs to take a monumental leap. And I think it's very possible with the acquisition of Kevin Sherr as, his linebacker coach and, in the New York Giants' new defensive scheme. I do think it fits his skill set. But Lorenzo Carter, to me, is one of the most important players this year and one of the biggest X factors on this New York Giants football team. The next guy we're going to talk about is DeAndre Baker, and we don't even know if DeAndre Baker is going to be on the team right now. But if DeAndre Baker's not, well, substitute him for whoever takes DeAndre Baker's role at the second cornerback spot. James Bradbury, I think, is a guy that we could at least depend on. I don't know if he's going to be super, but he's a guy we could depend on. We know he's a pro. He's going to go out there and give you a good performance most Sundays. And he's going to be asked to lock down the number one wide receiver. Well, DeAndre Baker, or whoever may take his spot, is going to be asked to lock down the number 2 wide receiver. And in this defense, a defense that I think will blitz as frequently as the New York Giants will. They a Patrick Graham-led defense last year with the Dolphins blitzed 41% of the time on third down. Well, to do that, you need strong corner play. They're going to use a lot of man-to-man coverage, and they will be putting a lot on the back of DeAndre Baker and James Bradbury. I think the second cornerback spot, and if it's Baker, DeAndre Baker, will really need to take a huge step forward this year. DeAndre Baker last year, it was kind of like a roller coaster. He finished strong, but for the course of the year, there were more downs than ups, but you expect that for a rookie. He was kind of mismanaged and misused. We know that. Wasn't accustomed to playing zone coverage. Whoever it is, whether it's Beal, whether it's Love, or whether it's DeAndre Baker, that second cornerback spot will need to be much more reliable than last season. I also could have said a guy like Julian Love or even Darnay Holmes. We know how the Giants got killed last year over the middle of the field, but I went with that number 2 cornerback spot due to the frequency of the blitz. And then finally, and I know it's a rookie, and I know this is putting very high hopes and expectations on a player, but I think Xavier McKinney is going to really need to break out for the New York Giants to have a strong year this year. I think he might be the most important part, as crazy as that may sound, for this defense due to his ability to, him or Peppers, pick your safety, but due to his ability to move all over the football field. He possesses about a 4.55 type speed. I know he ran, I think it was a 4.62, but they said he had a bit of an ankle sprain at the combine. He's fast enough to do a lot of different things. I think they'll send him off the edge. I think they'll use him in coverage in the slot. He'll be used as a traditional safety. So McKinney, to me, is another imperative piece for the New York Giants, along with rookie Andrew Thomas. But I only wanted to go over one offensive lineman, and I think Nate Solder is the guy that is most important, that is kind of like an X factor for this defense, being that I think most Giant fans kind of expect, Andrew Thomas to at least be an average tackle this year. We don't know what we're going to get from Nate Solder. But yeah, McKinney absolutely is a gigantic X factor for the New York Giants. No pun intended, due to the fact that I think he'll be used in so many different ways, kind of like Lorenzo Carter. But, yeah, there you have it, guys. Those are the 5 players who I think, if the Giants are going to do a lot better than what the pundits are saying, will perform higher than most people expect. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.